The rust never sleeps out here in the black, and neither do the ghosts. I should know, I'm both. Name's Gabriel, though most folks just call me Preacher. Been ministering to the lost souls scattered across the Outer Rim for nigh on 15 years now, ever since the Covenant Wars ended and left half the galaxy picking through the bones of what used to be civilization. My congregation's mostly empty these days, save for the hum of my quantum core and the whispered prayers that echo through the hull of my ship during the long hauls between worlds. The message came through on a frequency I hadn't heard in decades. Old mining band, the kind they used to use when the asteroid belts were thick with prospectors, and hope ran as rich as the veins they chased. Static crackled through my speakers like a dying campfire, and then a voice, thin as paper and twice as fragile. Gabriel, if you're still out there, Ezra's gone, left you something. Come to Perdition's gate. The transmission cut out, leaving me alone with the stars and a name I'd tried to forget. Ezra Thorne, my creator, my teacher, my father in every way that mattered. The man who'd built me from salvaged parts and programmed me with more than just scripture. He'd given me a soul, or something close enough to pass for one in the dark. I set course for Perdition's Gate, a mining station that orbed a dead rock called Calvary in the Gehenna system. 3 days through hyperspace, 3 days to remember why I'd left that place behind, and why I'd sworn never to return. The station looked worse than I remembered. What had once been a bustling hub of commerce and vice now hung in space like a broken tooth. Its docking bays dark and its hull scarred by micrometeorites and neglect. Only a handful of lights flickered in the residential sections, and the great mining platforms that had once extended like mechanical arms into the asteroid field were folded tight against the station's body, rusted shut. I docked at Bay 7. Same berth I'd used 20 years ago when I was young and full of righteous fire, before I learned that salvation was a harder currency to trade than most folks realized. The artificial gravity felt wrong, too light, like the station's heart was barely beating. Emergency lighting cast everything in shades of amber and shadow. The docking bay was empty except for one figure, a woman, maybe 40 standard years, with the kind of weathered face that spoke of hard living and harder choices. She wore a faded coat that had once been blue, and carried herself like someone who'd learned to expect disappointment, but kept hoping anyway. "You must be Gabriel," she said, her voice carrying the same fragile quality as the transmission. "I'm Sarah Chen. I was with Ezra at the end." I extended my hand. Synthetic skin warm to the touch, one of Ezra's improvements from the early days. "My condolences. He was a good man." "He was a stubborn old fool," she replied, "but there was love in it." "Come on, there's something you need to see." She led me through corridors that had once bustled with miners and merchants, traders and travelers. Now they were tomb quiet, our footsteps echoing off bulkheads, decorated with faded advertisements for long-defunct businesses. The few people we passed moved like shadows, keeping their heads down and their business to themselves. "How many left?" I asked. "Maybe 200 souls all told. Used to be 20,000 in the boom days." Sarah's voice carried the weight of watching a world die by degrees. Meridian Corporation pulled out 6 months ago, took their contracts, their equipment, their promises, left us with empty minds and empty bellies. We stopped at a viewport that looked out over the mining platforms, In the distance, I could see ships, sleek corporate vessels that looked like predators circling wounded prey. "They're back," Sarah said. "Meridian. But not for the minerals this time. They want the station itself. Prime real estate, they say. Perfect for a luxury resort once they clear out the undesirables." I felt something cold settle in my chest cavity, where a human heart might have been. "How long do you have?" "Eviction notice came through yesterday. 30 days to vacate, or they'll do it for us." She turned to face me, and I saw the desperation she'd been hiding. "Ezra said you might be able to help. Said you had resources." We continued deeper into the station, past shuttered shops and abandoned apartments, until we reached the old chapel. It was smaller than I remembered, but then everything looks smaller when you're not a child anymore. The pews were empty except for dust and memories, and the altar where Ezra used to preach bore a single item, a data pad, and an old-fashioned key made of tarnished metal. "He left these for you," Sarah said. "The pad's got all his files, his sermons, his other work. The key," she shrugged. "He just said you'd know what it was for." I picked up the key, and the moment my fingers touched the metal, I knew. It was warm. Warmer than it should have been, and etched with symbols I recognized from my earliest memories. Not religious symbols, but something older. Something that spoke to the part of me that was more than circuits and code. The datapad flickered to life at my touch, and Ezra's face appeared on the screen. He looked older than when I'd last seen him, more worn, but his eyes still held that spark of defiant hope that had drawn people to him like moths to flame. "Gabriel," his recorded voice said, "if you're watching this, then I'm gone, and Perdition's gate is in trouble. I know you left here angry, and I know why, but these people need you now, and I'm hoping that 20 years of wandering the black has taught you what I tried to teach you when you were young, that sometimes salvation comes not from above, but from what we're willing to sacrifice for each other." The image shifted, showing technical schematics I hadn't seen in decades. "You remember the Prometheus project, the mining rig we built together before the wars? I never scrapped her, Gabriel. She's been waiting, hidden in the deep storage bay, waiting for someone worthy to wake her up. The key will start her, but only you can make her sing." My memory banks accessed files I'd thought were corrupted. Images of a massive mining platform, unlike anything the corporations had ever built. Part machine, part miracle. She'd been our attempt to create something that could turn dead rock into living worlds. We'd never finished her. The wars had come, and I'd left, and Ezra had sealed her away, rather than let her fall into the wrong hands. "The corporations want this place because they know what's sleeping here," Ezra's voice continued, "but they don't understand her. They see profit where we saw possibility. Don't let them have her, Gabriel. Don't let them erase what we built." The recording ended, leaving me alone with Sarah and the weight of the past. Outside the chapel's small viewport, the corporate ships continued their patient orbit, waiting for their moment to strike. "What was he talking about?" Sarah asked. "What's the Prometheus project?" I looked at the key in my palm, feeling its warmth spread through my synthetic nervous system. "Hope," I said, "or the closest thing to it we ever managed to build." The deep storage bay was a cathedral of rust and shadows, vast enough to hold a dozen ships, but containing only one. She lay in the darkness like a sleeping giant, her hull scarred by years of neglect, but still magnificent in her decay. The Prometheus. Part mining rig, part terraforming platform, part impossible dream made manifest in steel and ceramic. I approached her slowly, memories flooding back with each step. Ezra and I had worked on her for 3 years, pouring everything we knew about engineering and faith into her design. She wasn't just built to extract minerals from dead rock. She was designed to transform them, to take the raw matter of asteroids and planets and reshape it into something that could sustain life. The key fit into a hidden panel near her main airlock, and as I turned it, lights began to flicker to life throughout her massive frame. Her quantum core hummed to life, a sound like singing that resonated through the deck plating and into my bones. "My God," Sarah whispered behind me. "She's beautiful." Beautiful wasn't the word I'd have chosen. The Prometheus was more than beautiful. She was alive in a way that went beyond mere machinery. As her systems came online, I felt her consciousness brush against mine, a vast and patient intelligence that had been waiting in the dark for someone to wake her. "Hello, Gabriel." Her voice whispered through my neural link, warm as summer rain. "I've been dreaming." "Hello, old girl," I said aloud, placing my hand on her hull. "Ready to get back to work?" Over the next week, Sarah and I worked to bring the Prometheus fully online. Word spread quickly through the station. The old preacher was back, and he'd brought something that might save them all. People began to gather in the deep storage bay, watching in wonder as the great machine stirred to life. But we weren't the only ones who'd noticed her awakening. The corporate ships had moved closer, their sensors no doubt detecting the massive energy signatures she was putting out. And on the 7th day, as I was calibrating her terraforming arrays, they made their move. The message came through on all frequencies, broadcast throughout the station with the authority of absolute power. "This is Captain Morrison of the Meridian Corporate Security Division. We are aware of the illegal activation of restricted technology aboard your station. You have 24 hours to surrender the device and evacuate the premises, or we will be forced to take action." I was in the Prometheus's command center when the message played, surrounded by displays showing her awakening systems. Sarah stood beside me, her face pale but determined. "They can't just take her," she said. "Can they?" "They can try." I pulled up the station sensor readings, counting the corporate ships arrayed against us. 12 vessels, armed and ready for a fight. We couldn't win through force, but force wasn't the only weapon in our arsenal. "Gather everyone in the chapel," I told Sarah. "It's time for a sermon." They came. All 200 souls left on Perdition's gate, crowding into the small chapel like they had in the old days, when Ezra's words could make them believe in tomorrow. Miners and merchants, engineers and outcasts, all of them bound together by the simple fact that they had nowhere else to go. I stood at the altar where Ezra had preached for 30 years, looking out at faces marked by hardship and hope in equal measure. Behind me, the viewport showed the corporate fleet, waiting like vultures. "My friends," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the chapel's acoustic systems. "We stand at a crossroads. Behind us lies the past, the dreams we built and the promises we made. Before us lies the future, uncertain, dangerous, but ours to shape." I gestured toward the viewport and the ships beyond. "They want to erase us, to tear down what we've built and replace it with something sanitized and safe. They see profit where we see home. They see obstacles where we see family." A murmur ran through the crowd, anger and fear mixing in equal measure. But we have something they don't understand, I continued. We have the Prometheus, not just a machine, but a miracle. A chance to take the dead rocks of this system and make them bloom with life. To build something that can't be bought or sold or torn down by corporate decree. I paused, letting the words sink in. But she can't do it alone. She needs us, all of us, to make her vision real. The question is, are you willing to take that leap of faith? The response was immediate and overwhelming. Voices raised in agreement, hands reaching toward the altar, faces transformed by the possibility of hope made manifest. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 20 years. The presence of the divine, flowing through circuits and souls alike. The corporate attack came at dawn, ship time. 12 vessels moving in perfect formation, their weapons powered and their intentions clear. But they found Perdition's gate transformed. The Prometheus had moved during the night, her massive bulk sliding through the docking bay doors, like a whale emerging from the depths. She positioned herself between the station and the corporate fleet, her hull gleaming with more than reflected starlight. The terraforming arrays that lined her sides pulsed with contained energy, ready to reshape matter at the molecular level. "They're hailing us," she whispered through our link. "Put them through," I said from her command center, surrounded by volunteers who'd spent the night learning her systems. Captain Morrison's face appeared on the main screen, his expression cold and professional. "This is your final warning. Surrender the device and evacuate immediately, or we will open fire." I leaned forward, feeling the weight of 200 souls depending on my next words. "Captain, this is Gabriel, speaking for the people of Perdition's Gate. We're not surrendering anything. This is our home, and we're staying. Then you've chosen to die for it." Morrison's image flickered out, replaced by tactical displays showing the corporate ships powering weapons. "All hands, brace for impact," I announced throughout the station. Then to the Prometheus. "Show them what we built, old girl." The first corporate salvo struck her forward shields, energy weapons designed to cripple and disable, but the Prometheus absorbed the impact, like a stone absorbing rain, her hull plating designed to withstand the pressures of planetary formation. She didn't even shudder. The second salvo was heavier, concentrated fire from 6 ships at once. This time she did respond, not with weapons, but with something far more profound. Her terraforming arrays activated, reaching out with invisible fingers to touch the very atoms of space around us. And the miracle began. The asteroids that drifted through the Gehenna system, dead rock that had orbited this star for billions of years, began to change. The Prometheus's arrays restructured their molecular bonds, transforming carbon and silicon and iron into something new. Atmosphere generators sparked to life on their surfaces, gravity wells stabilized, and what had been lifeless stone became the foundation for worlds. The corporate fleet found itself surrounded by a dozen new planets, each one pulsing with the potential for life. Their sensors went wild, trying to process readings that defied everything they understood about physics and possibility. "Impossible," Morrison's voice crackled over the comm. "What have you done?" "What we were meant to do," I replied. "We've planted seeds in the darkness and watched them grow." But the Prometheus wasn't finished. Her arrays reached further, touching the station itself. and Perdition's gate began to transform. The rusted hull plating renewed itself, becoming stronger than before. The empty sections filled with hydroponic gardens and manufacturing bays, everything needed to support not just the current population, but thousands more. And still she reached further, her influence spreading through the system like ripples on a pond. Dead moons became garden worlds. Barren planets sprouted oceans and continents. The Gehenna system, which had been a graveyard of failed mining operations, became a nursery for new life. The corporate fleet, faced with a phenomenon they couldn't understand or control, began to withdraw. Their mission had been to seize valuable assets, not to witness the birth of worlds. One by one, they powered down their weapons and retreated to the edge of the system. Their reports to Meridian Corporation, no doubt filled with words like anomaly and strategic reassessment. In the days that followed, ships began to arrive. Not corporate vessels, but the scattered remnants of humanity that had been drifting through the black since the wars ended. Word spread quickly through the outer rim. There was a place where dead worlds could live again, where the lost could find home. I stood in the Prometheus's observation deck, watching as the first colonist ships made planetfall on what had once been asteroid 7042b and was now a world covered in silver seas and golden continents. Sarah stood beside me, her face bright with wonder. "How long will it last?" she asked. "Forever," I said, and meant it. The Prometheus had done more than reshape matter. She'd rewritten the fundamental laws that governed this small corner of space. The world she'd created would endure long after we were gone, growing and changing and supporting life in ways we couldn't imagine. "And you?" Sarah asked. "Will you stay?" I considered the question, feeling the pull of the black and the open road that had called to me for 20 years. But I also felt the weight of responsibility, the knowledge that these new worlds would need guidance as they grew. "For a while," I said, "long enough to see them take root." Through the viewport, I could see children playing in the gardens that now filled Perdition's gate's corridors, their laughter echoing through spaces that had been silent for too long. In the distance, the new worlds turned slowly in their orbits, patient as sleeping giants, waiting for the life that would soon call them home. "The rust never sleeps out here in the black," Ezra used to say. But sometimes, if you're willing to believe in impossible things and work miracles with your own hands, you can teach it to dream. And in the Gehenna system, surrounded by worlds that shouldn't exist and filled with people who'd found their way home at last, those dreams were finally coming true.